Peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, praise be to God, and prayers and peace be upon the messenger of God, his family, his companions, and those who follow him. O God, there is nothing easy except what you make easy, and you make sorrow easy. If you will, O God, teach us what benefits us and benefit us with what you have taught us, and increase us in knowledge. Make all our deeds purely for your noble countenance, and do not let anyone else have any part in them, O Lord of the worlds. Welcome, dear friends, may you be blessed, and may your steps be blessed, and may you be granted a place in paradise, we ask. God the blessed and exalted, just as he has gathered us in obedience to him to gather us in his paradise, the abode of his mercy and the home of his honor. This is the 7th session of the Prophet's biography. Upon him be the best of prayers and the most complete peace. I begin by reminding myself, and you, of the suffering of our brothers in Gaza and how we have become lax in praying for them, in working for them, and in remembering them. This is something about which the Messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "The Muslim to the Muslim is like one body. The example of Muslims in their mutual love, mercy, and compassion is like that of one body. If one part of it is afflicted, the whole body responds with fever and sleeplessness." We had reached in our previous discussions. We mentioned the Battle of Badr. We noted that this battle ended with 70 of the polytheists killed, including several of their leaders and prominent figures, most notably Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl's full name was Amr ibn Hisham ibn al-Mughira al-Makhzumi. Others killed included Umayya ibn Khalaf, Utbah ibn Rabi'a, Shayba ibn Rabi'a, al-Walid ibn Utbah, ibn al-Hajjaj, Nabi ibn Munabi, who was one of the leaders of disbelief, and Abu al-Bakhtari ibn Hisham. 70 were also taken prisoner, among them Al-Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib, the Prophet's uncle, peace and blessings be upon him. We mentioned Al-Abbas, Yazid, and Suhail ibn Amr. We will now continue discussing the prisoners and then, God willing, talk about some scenes from the battle. We mentioned that one of the most important prisoners was Al-Walid ibn al-Walid ibn al-Mughira. He was the brother of Khalid ibn al-Walid. May God be pleased with him. Khalid was a polytheist at that time. Their father, Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, was the chieftain of Banu Makhzum and the wealthiest man among the Quraysh. The Quraysh were, the Kaaba was renewed, or rather its covering was renewed 1 year, and he alone would renew it the following year. He was the wealthiest of the Quraysh. Walid ibn al-Walid ibn al-Mughira was captured, and his brothers Khalid ibn al-Walid and Hisham ibn al-Walid ransomed him. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, demanded a large ransom for him, a ransom we will discuss, God willing, in the section on prisoners and how the ransom was paid. But what is striking about the story of Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira is that, after he was ransomed and released from Muslim captivity, he declared his Islam. This meant he was deprived of his people's respect and a disgrace to them because they had spent money on him, and as some narrations state, had also spent his father Al-Mughira's share of the spoils. In modern terms, we could say it was a rare historical treasure, or something that distinguished the Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira family from others. He said, "No, by God, so that the Quraysh would not say that I converted to Islam out of fear of capture or dread of being taken prisoner." He wanted to prove that he had converted out of faith in Islam, even if it meant his family had lost this wealth or this privilege. Therefore, Walid ibn al-Mughira was imprisoned along with the 2 men whom Abu Jahl had imprisoned before, whom we mentioned during the Hira, Salama ibn Hisham and Ayyash ibn Abi Rabi'a, both from Banu Makhzum. We also mentioned that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used to supplicate for them When Al-Walid was imprisoned with him, the Prophet peace and blessings be upon him also included him in his supplication, praying, O Allah, save Salama ibn Hisham, Ayyash ibn Abi Rabia and Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira. Among those also taken prisoner was Aqil ibn Abi Talib, the brother of Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with him. Also taken prisoner was Nawfal ibn al-Harith ibn Abd al-Muttalib, the oldest of Banu Hashim, even older than his uncle al-Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib. He was also among those taken prisoner Amr ibn Sufyan ibn Harb, the son of Abu Sufyan ibn Harb, was also taken prisoner and was killed at Badr. Sufyan had another son, Hanzala, who was also killed at Badr. So of course Abu Sufyan, even according to what is narrated about him, here was told, reduce your captive. He replied, he has lost my son and my wealth, so let him remain with them. Let them hold him as long as they hold him, meaning he did not want to lose more wealth after already losing it. Then it happened that one of the Muslims was taken captive. It is mentioned by the biographers and historians of the battles that one of the elders who had converted to Islam named Sa'd ibn al-Numan went to Mecca to perform Umrah. Frankly, I don't know the context that would compel a Muslim to go to Mecca for Umrah at this time, which was a time of war. I don't know what prompted him to do this or whether he was in Medina or elsewhere. This is something I need to research or verify, in short. When he went to Mecca for Umrah, Abu Sufyan captured him and announced that he would exchange him for his son. When Sa'd's people went to the Prophet peace and blessings be upon him, he released his son Tamim. Among those taken captive here were Amr ibn Abi Sufyan ibn Harb and Wahb ibn Umayr ibn Wahb al-Jumahi, a name we mentioned earlier when discussing the beginning of the Battle of Badr, was the man known as Umayr ibn Wahb, nicknamed the Devil of Quraysh. He was on a reconnaissance mission to ascertain the number of Muslims. He succeeded and returned to his people with this advice: the Muslims number 300, give or take a few hundred. But, O people of Quraysh, I have seen death carrying calamities, the camels of Yathrib carrying the dead. They are a people with no refuge or protection except their swords. By God, no man among them will die until he kills one of you. What good is life after them? Then someone from among them, remember who? Abu Jahl, right? He tried to frighten the people, but they didn't heed the advice. Among those captured was his son Wahb ibn Umayr ibn Wahb al-Jumahi. When he was captured, there was an interesting story that we should briefly recount here. When the polytheists were defeated at Badr, Umayr ibn Wahb placed himself among the slain so no one noticed him. Then after the battle was over, he walked back to Mecca, and he had a wound, and this also indicates his character and how he was nicknamed the Devil of Quraysh. This wasn't for nothing, I mean. So when he returned wounded and with his son a prisoner, so he thought of a suicide operation. He thought of going to assassinate the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Now he was from the Juma clan, and we mentioned that the leaders of Juma were from Umayyah ibn Khalaf and Umayyah ibn Khalaf's son Safwan ibn Umayyah was a close companion of Umayr ibn Wahb. Of course, Safwan ibn Umayyah would later embrace Islam and become a good Muslim, right? But at this moment what were Safwan ibn Umayyah's feelings after Badr when his father Umayyah ibn Khalaf and his brother Ali ibn Umayyah were killed at Badr, right? So while they were talking in the courtyard of the Kaaba, Umayr ibn Wahb said, "By God, were it not for Ali's debt which I cannot repay, and were it not for my family whom I fear will be destitute, I would have taken up my sword and gone to Muhammad and killed him." So Safwan ibn Umayyah, who was wealthy, was one of the great businessmen of Quraysh and would remain rich until he had the events of the days of the conquest. The days of the conquest of Mecca mean that the Prophet would take shields from him, and there would be other events. Safwan said to him, "As for your debt, I will pay it off. Regarding the issue of money, I remember one of our teachers saying, 'Money, young man, is the easiest problem and the greatest problem at the same time.' When a person is truly without money, his whole life is paralyzed. He thinks about transportation, food, medical checkups, and medicine, but in the end or in general, the simple problem is that anyone can, by giving money, solve the problem of the poor. So, Safwan ibn Umayyah was a wealthy man. It would have been easy to find, in other words, a suicide bomber or a martyr to end this matter. So he said, "As for the debt, I will pay it off, and as for your children, they are with my children. I will provide for them, they will lack nothing." This reminds us here, forgive me for this digression, but it is an important one, about three weeks ago, the Israeli Minister of War published a document that he said he found in one of the tunnels belonging to Hamas. Who among you has seen this? Important news. The document says that the Hamas leadership asked Iran for $500 million in order to prepare for the Battle of Liberation. To my knowledge, until this moment there has been no denial from either Iran or Hamas. So, if the document is true, how much does the movement estimate the Battle of Liberation will require? $500 million or if the document wasn't authentic, then the Israelis tried to forge the document, perhaps as an attempt to implicate Iran or something similar, so they impersonated the movement's mindset and came up with how much? $500 million. I want to focus on this $500 million. This $500 million figure means that if you were a politician in the Arab world, you had a movement full of suicide bombers and people willing to sacrifice themselves, but they lacked $500 million. I remember that Neymar's transfer to his last club was $100 million, right? So 5 players like Neymar could liberate Palestine, right? The amount increased to $200 million. There is no power nor strength except with God. Okay, I mean, I don't have the latest update. For example, if you have $500 million, in our Arab world, it's really nothing. We have Mr. Abdel Fattah building a new administrative capital, the train that will reach. The administrative capital alone will cost $4 billion. The train, not the capital, the monorail, of course. Just 2 days ago, we had the Roman emperor collecting tribute from the Arab kings, and he came out with about $3 or $4 trillion. So how many times is 500 million, folks? 1,000 times? 8,000 times, right? 8,000 times. Forget about religion, forget about Arabism, forget about dignity, even if it's purely for Commercial gain, you'd pay 500 million and still be respected with everyone admiring you, or you'd pay a trillion, a trillion and a half, a trillion and a half and still not be respected in this world. So what a loss for someone who has. Martyrs, strong men and those who love to fight and then withholds money from them because they'll spend the money anyway and still not achieve dignity. You know, Al-Mutanabi had a verse that says, there is no glory in this world for one who has little wealth, and there is no wealth in this world for one who has little glory, and also a person who has money but no strength, his wealth is useless. People build their glory with knowledge and money, not on ignorance and lack. Of course, we're the ones who thought of this. Safwan ibn Umayyah. Safwan found a suicide bomber who was going to carry out this operation, and he said to him, so you came to the money? This money is the least of things. Your debt is on me to pay off, and your children are with my children. And indeed, Umar bin Wahb went to the Prophet, may God bless him and grant him peace, and took his sword, and he had poisoned his sword so that any scratch, even if the injury is not fatal like an injury or a wound, the poison would spread through it. And he entered to the Prophet, may God bless him and grant him peace, and as soon as he went he found Umar. O Umar bin Wahb, the devil of Quraysh, what brought you here? He said, I came to ransom my son who is with you. He said, then why is this sword on your shoulder? He said, may God curse these swords, and did they avail us anything on the day of Badr? They were confused about the matter, right? But the Prophet, may God bless him and grant him peace, heard him and gave him permission and said, come here, O Umar, what brought you here? My son said, did you see when I sat with Safwan in the courtyard of the Kaaba and you said such and such to him and he said such and such to you? Umar bin Wahb said, what? He said, I bear witness that you are the messenger of God. By God, no one knew about this and no one was with us in the Kaaba. So he embraced Islam and asked permission from the Prophet, may God bless him and grant him peace. He had now fully embraced Islam, and the Prophet, may God bless him and grant him peace, told his companions to return him as a prisoner. But to see the strength of his character, he also asked permission to return to Mecca to call people to Islam there. He promised the Prophet, may God bless him and grant him peace, that he would not leave a place where the Prophet and his companions had been harmed before his Islam without returning to it and supporting Islam there. This also tells you about the strength of character of our master Umar bin Wahb, may God be pleased with him, and indeed he returned to Mecca. Of course, some biographers narrate that Safwan bin Umayyah was expecting news of the assassination of our master Muhammad, may God bless him and grant him peace. And Safwan's expectation tells you about the competence of whom? Our master Umar ibn Wahb. You know, sometimes you entrust someone with a task and feel apprehensive about it. But if you are sending someone on a mission, send a wise man and don't give him instructions about who will handle it. Once he receives the message, you can rest assured that it has been completed. He would inquire about the news from the riders approaching Mecca. He came upon a caravan and they told him that Umar ibn Wahb had embraced Islam. He swore not to speak to him or help him in any way. Then Umar returned and did what he had promised the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. That's why I mentioned this digression in the context of the fact that one of those Umar captured was Wahb ibn Umar ibn Wahb al-Jumahi. Now, if we go back to the Battle of Badr, there were many scenes, but I would like to arrange them in this order. First, let's reflect on the bravery of the companions, their fighting, and
أن نتأمل أولا في بسالة الصحابة وقتالهم واستشهادهم.
Their martyrdom. Then we move on to the matter that the Holy Quran emphasized, which is the hand of God in the battle. Among the accounts that came down about the companions' valor in their fighting is what al-Bukhari narrated on the authority of Urwa on the authority of Hisham ibn Urwa ibn al. Zubair. This is a well-known chain of transmission among the people of Hadith. Our master al-Zubair, one of his sons was Abdullah. Of course, our master al-Zubair had many sons, but one of his most famous sons was Abdullah, the well-known companion who later became a caliph. But who was the companion who transmitted knowledge from him and others? Urwa, and this Urwa transmitted much knowledge from Aisha, because Aisha, may God bless her, was excellent. The one who acquired Urwa's knowledge was his son Hisham ibn Urwa. This is a well-known chain of transmission. Hisham narrated from Urwa from al-Zubair that al-Zubair received 3 blows to his shoulder on the day of Badr. Urwa said, I would insert my fingers into this wound. This Urwa was a young boy born after Badr, so the scar remained on al-Zubair until that time. Also narrated about the heroism of al-Zubair, may God be pleased with him, is al-Zubair ibn al-Awwam. Our master al-Zubair ibn al-Awwam was one of the famous knights of Islam. It is narrated about him that he was an unparalleled knight. This was well known about al-Zubair. During the conquests, it is narrated that he would charge into the army, causing people to scatter until he reached the end, then he would return. No one dared to kill al-Zubair, may God be pleased with him. Also narrated about him in the conquests, Badr said that al-Zubair met a man named Abu Ubaidah. This Abu Ubaidah was nicknamed Abu Dihat al-Karsh, father of the belly. His name was Ubaidah ibn Seed ibn Alaz. The word al-Karsh refers to the well-known belly, and it also means a group of people. So, Ubaidah Abu Dihat al-Karsh used to boast about himself. He was safe, because he was fully armored with only his eyes visible. He was well protected and would say, I am Abu Dihat al-Karsh, boasting and showing off. Al-Zubair said, so I threw a spear at him. The spear is a broad-bladed spear. You know that spears are usually sharp and thin, but some spears have broad blades. Al-Zubair said, so I threw the spear at his eyes, and he died from it. Then I tried my best to pull it out. I put my foot on it and it stretched until I pulled it out, and it's ends were bent. Now what do you think? That was a record-breaking blow, someone with only his eyes visible, and then he hit someone with a broad blade, not even a blade. The sharp, thin spear entered him, killed him, and then lodged so deeply that removing it was a great effort, and it would not come out until both ends were bent. This is what al-Zubair, may God be pleased with him, narrated. When the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, heard this from al-Zubair, he asked him to give him this spear. It remained with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, until he died. Then Abu Bakr asked for it, and it remained with him until he
حتى استردها بعد ذلك
died, then
عبد الله
Umar, then
بن
Uthman,
الزبير.
then Ali, until Abdullah ibn al-Zubayr took it back. This man was a leader of the disbelievers and one of their heroes, so the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, wanted to preserve this legacy. Also narrated is what our master Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said about our master Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. This was narrated by
هذا رواه أحمد في فضائل الصحابة قال قاتل سعد في ذلك
Ahmad
اليوم
in his book The Virtues of the Companions. He said, Sa'd fought that day with the fighting of a horseman and a foot soldier. This is about our master Sa'd. Also narrated is what our master Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf said when he captured Umayyah ibn
تذكرون لما أسر أمية بن خلف
Khalaf. We remember when he captured Umayyah ibn Khalaf. Umayyah had already surrendered and wished to make an example of him. He didn't actually want to go out, as we mentioned. Then when our master Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf saw him with armor, meaning he had captured spoils of war, he said to him, Abu Amr, but he didn't reply. Abu
غنمها قال له أبا عمرو مردش عليه أبا عبد الإله
Abd al-Ilah, you have something better than these armors. They said, just come, meaning I'll be pleased with you, I'll ransom you with a lot of money. In another narration it says, as for you, a request for milk, meaning I'll ransom you with a lot of milk. So our master Abd al-Rahman left his armor and his camel and captured
فسيدنا عبد الرحمن ترك أدرعه وإيه وأسر أمية وولده. وبعدين حصلت القصة اللي حكيناها المرة اللي
Umayyah and
فاتت.
his son. Then the story we told last time happened. Our master Bilal lost his camel. He lost it, so he said, May God have mercy on Bilal. I lost armor and was taken prisoner. Abd al-Rahman
عبد الرحمن يروي سيدنا عبد الرحمن بن عوف يروي أن أمية لما أسره قال
narrated that when Umayyah captured him, he said, Who is this who carries the ostrich feather mark? He said, That is Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib. He said, This is the one who did these terrible things to us. What I want to cite here is that Umayyah ibn Khalaf was a Qurayshi man from the Juma clan.
إن أمية بن خلف رجل قرشي جمحي وحمزة بن عبد المطلب رجل
And Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib was a Qurayshi man from the Juma clan, so it is very difficult for Umayyah to be. Hamza's appearance is not fully known, but this question suggests that the intensity, ferocity, speed, and horror of the
من شدة المعركة وقسوتها وسرعتها وهولها ذهل الرجل أن يعرف حمزة بن عبد المطلب.
battle may have caused the man to be so overwhelmed that he couldn't recognize Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib. He could only distinguish the ostrich feather Hamza wore. Hamza may have been masked at that time, God knows best, or he may have been wearing armor, God knows best as well. However, it seems from the psychological state described in the accounts of Umayyah ibn Khalaf's capture that he was in a state of shock and bewilderment, preventing him from recognizing Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib. Otherwise, Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf would have easily recognized him. Therefore, I am mentioning this now in connection with what Hamza did. Also, it is narrated in the biography that Mu'adh Ibn Amr ibn al-Jama said, On the day of Badr I made Abu Jahl my primary concern, and I saw him in a thicket. The word thicket here refers to dense, intertwined trees. Abu
يعني كلمة حرج بمعنى الشجر الملتف. فأبو جهل كان في حماية من قومه كأنه في حرج.
Jahl was under the protection of his people as if he were in a thicket, and they were saying he cannot reach Abu al-Hakam. Naturally, this is the meaning. Leaders are not to be neglected, they always have guards. This is the principal meaning. Leaders cannot be neglected, he said, so I made him my concern, and when he was exposed I struck him with a sword and his foot flew off along with half of his shin. Then his son struck me. His son was one of the most famous sons of Abu Jahl, Akrama bin Abi, so his son struck me with a blow on my shoulder, and my hand fell off. I cut off his hand completely, so nothing held my arm except the flesh. On my side, the arm was cut off, but it is still attached. To what? With his flesh on his side, he says, when I was exhausted in. The fighting, I placed my foot on it and it stretched out, so I cut it off. Of course, this is a legendary story, a truly legendary story, and praise be to God, Lord of the worlds, that he has left among us until now some who resemble the companions of our prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, perhaps.
يبقى فينا حتى الآن بعض أشباه صحابة نبينا صلى الله عليه وسلم ولعلكم رأيتم
You have seen the fighters in the
في
brigades of Is ad-Din
في
who throw shells and rockets with one hand, or
ذلك
those who
الذي
attended the
هو
scene of handing over prisoners while in a
الذي
wheelchair.
أشهد
The
تسليم
point.
الأسرى وهو على كرسي متحرك فالقصد هنا هذا الرجل معاذ بن الجموح كيف كان يعني
Here is this
يبذل
man
كل
Mu'adh ibn
جهده
al-Jama, how
وكان
he fought
ذراعه
in
أطول
battle
من
until his
عنقه
arm was injured and he cut it off. And,
ومن
from
ذلك
that
أيضا
also is what Musa
ما
ibn
رواه
Uqba narrated in his book on the
عقبة
battles.
المغازي
Musa ibn
وموسى
Uqba's
بن
book on the
عقبة
battles is known to be the most
معروفة
authentic
مغازيه
and
بأنها
imam.
صحيح المغازي وكان الإمام مالك يحب موسى بن عقبة ويوصي بمغازيه وذكرت
Malik
في
loved
مغني
Musa ibn
أن
Uqba and
مغازي موسى
recommended
بن
his book
عقبة
on the battles.
طبعت
I
بتحقيق
mentioned in a
الأمير
previous gathering that Musa
الأمام
ibn
الأخير
Uqba's book on the battles
الأستاذ
was
الدكتور
printed
محمد
with a
البرادعي
beautiful edition this
وهو
past
يحمل
year,
هذا الباب
edited by Dr. Muhammad
فيجب أن
al-Tabarani, a
نعرف
well-known
مغازي
figure in this field.
الناس
Among what
كلها
Musa ibn Uqba narrated in his book
ذهب
on the
هو
battles is that
وأبوه
Sa'd ibn
في يوم بدر الآن في خروج للمعركة
Kawithama and his father drew lots on the day of
والبلد
Badr. Now in
فماذا
Kuraz, the
فعلوا
battle was
اجتهدوا
imminent
يعني
and the
اقترعوا
family
بالحيلة
needed one of them, so what did they
من
do?
الذي
They drew
يخرج
lots between them
إلى
to
بدر
determine who would go to Badr. This, my friends, is a
وهذه
great virtue
معركة
among the
ومرحبة عظيمة من مناقب الصحابة أن يستبق الولد وأبوه
companions that a son and
الآن
his father
إذا
would compete. You know
حققت
now the reality of how a
كعلامة
son and his
للنصر
father compete for what they compete for going out or for
على
safety. It's
الخروج
human
لطلب
nature.
السلامة
So they drew lots and Saad's lot came out, his.
هذه غريزة الناس يعني فاستهم فخرج سهم سعد فقال له أبوه خيثمة يا ولدي يا بني آثرني على
Father
نفسك اليوم
Koithama said to him, my son, my child,
فقال
give me
له
preference
سعد
over yourself
يا
today.
ابنتي
Saad
إنه الجنة
replied, Father, it is
ولو
paradise.
كان
If it were anything
غيرها
else, I would have done
لأفعل
it. So he went out and was among the martyrs of the battle of
وكان من
Badr.
شهداء
His father
أحد
Koithama was martyred in the battle of Uhud, the
واستشهد
battle
أبوه
that
خيثمة
followed.
بغزوة
I
تبوك الغزوة التالية له
mentioned earlier
وهذه
that, when we enter the realm of jihad, we see another level of love for the
حينما
Prophet,
ندخل في
peace
مجال
and
الجهاد
blessings be
نرى
upon
أن
him, and another level of
أكثر من
faith, the level of those who bore witness to the faith and to the Prophet, peace and
ترى
blessings be
النبي
upon
صلى الله
him, with
عليه وسلم
their
شهدوا مع
lives
النبي
and
صلى الله عليه وسلم
blood competing.
بأرواحهم ودمائهم وكانوا يتسابقون فيها طيب ومما روي أيضا
In it, and it was also narrated that our
أن
master
عمير بن
Umair
أبي
ibn Abi
وقاص
Waqqas, our
أن
master
عمير بن
Umair
أبي وقاص
ibn Abi
كان
Waqqas, you
لابن
know from the
عمر
name that he is the
خادما
brother of whom? He is the
أخو سعد
brother
بن
of
عبد
Sa'd ibn Abi
وفي
Waqqas, our
غير
master
اختلاف في
Umair. The
المصادر
sources
في
differed on his age, but when he heard the call to
ولكنه
arms
لما
for
سمع
Badr, he went
بالأمير في
with
ذلك
him. We mentioned that when the
قال
Prophet went out, he began to
بعث معه فذكرنا أن النبي لما خرج بدأ في استعراض الجيش
review the
وأن
army.
عمير
Our
من
master
أول ما
Umair,
خرج
from the moment he
حتى
went out
استعراض
until the
الجيش
army review, was
يتسرى
hiding from
إلى
the
النبي
Prophet
صلى الله
May.
عليه وسلم يقول سعد فقلت له ما لك يا أخي قال
God
أتوارى
bless him and
عن
grant
رسول
him
الله صلى الله عليه
peace.
وسلم
Saad
فإنه
said,
إذا
so I
رآني
said to
خشيت
him,
أن
what is wrong,
يقتلني
my brother? He said, I am
لكن
hiding
لما
from the
خرج
Prophet.
النبي
May God
واستعرض
bless him and
الجيش
grant him peace, because if he
عرفت
sees me, I fear that he will send me back. But when the Prophet went out
فأرسله
and reviewed
النبي
the
صلى
army, he
الله
could
عليه
not
وسلم فرده
escape completely, so the Prophet, may
فبكى
God bless him and
عمير
grant him peace, saw him and sent him
حتى
back.
جازه
So
النبي
Umair
صلى
cried
الله
until the
عليه وسلم
Prophet, may God bless him and grant him
حتى
peace,
إذا
allowed him to go. He
يقول
kept
سعد
crying until the Prophet
فكنت
allowed him to
أعقد
go.
له
Saad said,
حمائل
so I
سيفه
was
يعني إيه يعني هو لصغره
tying the straps of a
لم
sword for him. What does that
مش
mean? Because of
قادر
his
يعني
small size and apparent physical
بصوره معقد
limitations,
هنا
he was unable
سيدنا
to,
سعد
or to
ربط له
use a
سيفه في يده
modern term, so our master Saad tied his sword to his hand so it wouldn't fall from his grasp,
يعني
making it
علشان يسهل عليه حمله وبالفعل قاتل عمير حتى
easier
استشهد
for him to
من
carry,
شهداء
and indeed
بدر
Umair fought until he
طيب
was martyred, and he was among the
ومما
martyrs of
روي
the Battle
أيضا
of Badr, and among what was also
وهذه
seen, and this is the narration of
في
Ibn
السيرة
Ishaq in his
أن
biography, is that
شهد
our
عوف بن الحارث
master Auf ibn
عوف
al-Harith,
بن
Auf ibn
الحارث جاء في
al-Harith
غزوة
was in the
بدر
Battle
وقال
of Badr
للنبي صلى
and
الله عليه وسلم يا رسول الله
said to the Prophet,
ما
peace and
يسخط
blessings be
الرب
upon
من
him, O
عبده
Messenger of God, what makes
يعني
the
إيه
Lord laugh
يعني
at his
ما
servant?
الذي
What does that
يغضب
mean? What
الله
pleases God from his servant? Laughs means pleases. You know the original meaning is that when a person is pleased or happy he laughs, so laughs here is a metaphor for being pleased. He said, O messenger of God, what pleases the servant, what
فقال يا رسول الله ما يرضي العبد ما يرضي الرب من عبده.
pleases the Lord from his servant? He said, that he plunges his hand into the enemy, barehanded. This means a martyrdom operation, that he enters the enemy barehanded, without armor, and fights until he is killed. The
حاسرا بغير درع فيقاتل حتى يقتل.
narrator says he was wearing armor, so he took it off and went to the enemy. He kept fighting until he was killed. May God have mercy on our master off. We mentioned earlier, in the previous session, the story of our master Umayr ibn
سيدنا عوفا. وذكرنا قبل ذلك في المجلس الماضي حكاية سيدنا عمير بن الحمام.
Umayr ibn al-Hammam, when he said to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, the Prophet says there is no man who goes out to them seeking reward, advancing and not retreating, and is killed, except that he will enter paradise. He said, O Messenger of God, how wonderful, how wonderful. The Prophet said, what made you say how wonderful, how wonderful? He said, by God, O Messenger of God, nothing but the hope that I may be among its people. The Prophet said, then you are among its people. So he took out some dates from his quiver and began to eat them. Then he said, if I live until I eat these dates, it will be a long life indeed. So he threw down the dates from his hand and entered my hand, meaning he entered the enemy army. Here I found a truly beautiful statement by Sheikh Munir al-Gadban. Sheikh Munir al-Gadban is one of the scholars of the Levant, one of the scholars of Syria. This Sheikh Munir is a man who spent his life studying the biography of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and most of his writings are on the Prophet's biography, of course. His book, The Dynamic Approach to the Biography, is famous, and he also wrote another book, The Jurisprudence of the Biography. Among his books that people overlook even though they contain the essence of his life is his encyclopedic work, The Educational Approach to the Biography. This prophetic work, an encyclopedia in 11 volumes, is not overlooked. Many people are unaware of it, and it is available for download online. It discusses political and leadership education. Among the most remarkable things he said, and this is the statement I'm sharing with you, was commenting on such acts of heroism that the concepts of the new society have changed, and its members are now more attached to the afterlife and eager to please God. This is after their primary concern used to be that women would speak of their heroism, or that the tribal chief would be pleased with them, or that poems would be recited praising their bravery. Now the Arabs before Islam, I imagine even the Sheikh while writing this had poems in mind. For example, you know the Malaka of Antara, he mentions his bravery and heroism, but to whom does he mention it? He mentions it to Abla. Ask the horses, O daughter of Malik, if you are ignorant of what you do not know, he who witnessed the battle will tell you that I rush into the fray and refrain from taking spoils. Or, as he said, guide me to what you know, for I am generous in my dealings if I am not wronged. I wronged Van, my injustice is bitter, its taste is like Colocynth, and of course he is the author of the famous verses that every romantic loves, which is what, and I remembered you while the spears were drinking from me, the spears were drinking from me, drinking from Antara, and the white Indian swords were dripping with my blood. I wished to kiss the swords, because they appeared like the lightning of your smiling mouth, and it healed my soul and cured its sickness when it was said, woe to you, Antara, come forward. Antara, now what? You know the story of Antara. He was a slave, and that is why when war comes, where are you, Antara? So the world has returned to peace. What should they say to him? Sit down, you slave, he said. That's why he used to say, in times of peace they call me son of a raisin, but when war comes they call me son of the good ones. So here when his father called him, "Woe to you, Antar, come forward, you are free," he now refused to enter the battle unless, what, if that meant his
لو كان في ذلك عتقه. قالوا له عنترة أقبل، قال العبد يحسن الحلب
freedom, they would have
والصيد
told
ولا
him to come
يحسن الحرب
forward. He
والفر.
said, "A slave is good at milking and shearing, but not at attacking and retreating." His father said to him, "Go ahead and you are free." So they rushed into battle. He rushed forward, saying, "And I have healed my soul and cured its ailment." The horsemen said, "Woe to you, Antar, advance!" They called out, "Antar," and the spears were like ropes of a well in the chest of the black horse. "I won't prolong this with you." His intention was Antar. This is a poem actually, it's all pride and courage, but here it's true that when you compare what Islam did in this
صح. أنت حين تقارن ماذا فعل الإسلام في هذا المجتمع، كيف نقلهم من إنه صحيح العرب كان فيهم
society, how it transformed them from,
لحسن
yes, it's
الذكرى
true that among the Arabs there were those who would
وهم
die
يرون
for a
هذا
good
ويرون
memory
هذا
so that a good
من
memory would be
الأمور من
remembered.
الأمور
They saw
وهو
this
حق
and that as
بالمناسبة.
one of the noblest and most
حق
honorable things, and
للإنسان
it
يضحي
is
بنفسه
also true, it is true that a
في
person should
سبيل
sacrifice himself
المعنى
for the
والقيمة والقدر الذي يعلى له،
sake of
ليس
meaning, value, and the
لهذه.
status that elevates him, not for the sake of
وأظن
material
بعد
life.
ذلك
And I
قول
think I
قائل
mentioned before that the saying of one of
تأخرت
them,
استبق
"I
الحياة
delayed
فلم
hoping to
أجد
preserve
بنفسي
life, but I found
حياة
no life for
مثل
myself
أن
like to
أتقدم.
advance,
أول
and
ما
when you
تتقدم
advance and kill,
وتقتل يحسن ويخلد ذكرك.
your memory will be
هذا
honored and immortalized."
الإسلام
Here,
وجه
Islam
هذه
directed
النظرة
this energy and
وغير
changed
هذه
these
النفوس
souls, not so that they
لا
do not
لكي
seek anything of this
ترضوا
world, not so that
شيئا
women may
منه
speak of them,
لا
nor so that
يريدون،
poems may be recited
ولا
about
لكي
them, nor so
تتحدث
that
عنهم
their
النساء،
people
ولا
or
لكي
tribal
يقال
leaders may be
فيهم
pleased with
السحار،
them.
ولا لكي يرضى عنهم قومهم ولا سياد القبيلة فيهم، ولكن لماذا؟
But only for the sake
لله
of
ورسوله.
God and his messenger.
ولذلك
Therefore you saw in the
تجد
time
في
of
عهد
the
الصحابة
companions, the
والتابعين
successors, and the
والتابعين
conquerors those who were
أنهم
keen to
يحرصوا على
conceal
كتمان
their
عملهم.
deeds. You all know the story of the man of
طبعا
the
كلكم
tunnel,
عارفين
of
صفحة
course, that a
النقبة،
person strives and sacrifices
إن
himself
الإنسان
and loves
يجتهد
and
ويضحي بنفسه ويحب ويؤثر ألا يعرف عمله.
prefers that his deed
هذا
not be known.
تغيير
This
هائل
is a tremendous
قدمه
change that
الإسلام
Islam
في
brought about
حياة
in
الناس.
these people.
طيب
14 Muslims were
إن
killed,
من
6
المسلمين
from the
المهاجرين
Muhajirin and 8 from the Ansar.
من
Now, my
المهاجرين
brothers and
ومن
sisters, let us
الأنصار. الآن يا جماعة الخير، تعالوا ننظر في حكمة الله تبارك وتعالى.
consider the wisdom
السؤال
of God, the
أيهما
blessed and
كان خيرا
exalted.
للمسلمين؟
The question is, which was better for the
الظفر بالعدة
Muslims,
أم
to
نصرة
seize the
الله؟
caravan or to fight the battle of Badr? Now that we have
ماذا
seen this
تعتقدون
outcome,
أيها
which
المسلمون؟
was better, does anyone
أيهما أفضل؟
doubt?
حد عنده شك في هذا؟ يعني صحيح المسلمين لما رأوا إنه في
This
جيش
indeed, when the Muslims
لا
saw that there was
يستعد
an
له
army and they went out unprepared for it,
وصاروا
God, the
الله
blessed and
تبارك
exalted,
وتعالى
described them. And when your Lord
يخبرنا
brought you
بأنه
out
بالحق
of your home for a
يخرجون من
right, even though a
المؤمنين
party of the believers were
كارهون
averse to it, arguing with you
يسيرون
about
في
the
الحق
truth after it had become
بعدما
clear
تبين
to you, they
لهم
were only being driven to
وسارعون
death
إلى
while they
الموت وهم ينظرون وإذ يعدكم الله إحدى الطائفتين أنها
looked
لكم
on, and when God
وتودون
promised you one of the two groups that
أن
it would be
غير ذات
yours, and you
الشوكة
wished that the
تكون
one
لكم
without power would be
ويريد الله
yours, and God wanted to establish the truth by his words, so which was
فأيهما كان خير؟ تدبير الله لعباده أم تدبير العباد لأنفسهم؟
better, God's plan for his servants or the servants' plan for
يعني يا جماعة
themselves?
الخير
This means,
انتصار
therefore, my good
المسلمين
people, that
انتصار
military
المسلمين
victory,
لا
military victory
يقارن
cannot
في
be
فوائده
compared in its benefits,
ونتائجه
results, and
وآثاره
effects to any
بأي انتصار اقتصادي.
economic victory. We will
وسيأتي
have more to say
في
on this
كلام
matter when we
آخر
come to the story of the
سيأتي
dispute over
لفظ
the
الخلاف
prisoners. To
الأسرى.
have prestige, to have power, and to have influence is better than to
تحقق
have
أن
wealth.
تكون ذا
This is
قوة
clear, very
وتكون
clear,
ذا
and there is no
نفوذ
arguing about it, and
خير
we
من أن تكون
still
ذا مال. وهو أمر واضح، أمر واضح لا يجادل فيه. تمام.
see what happens to
ولسه
those who have wealth but no
سمعناهم
power.
وهم
The
ينظرون
Roman invader
وهم
comes and eliminates them.
يأتيهم العز
Yes, there is
بالغرور
no
والتطور.
glory in this world for those who have little
نعم.
wealth, and no wealth in this
لا
world
مجد
for
في
those who
الدنيا
have
لمن
little
قل ماله ولا
glory.
مال في الدنيا لمن قل مجده. صحيح. فالله تبارك وتعالى أراد للمسلمين
Indeed, God may be blessed and
نتيجة لم
exalted
يكونوا
willed
هم
for the
يحسبونه
Muslims a
ولم
military
يكونوا
victory that they
لأجله
did not expect.
كرهه
Rather,
بعضهم
when they were
وكفر
surprised by it, some of them disliked it and their souls recoiled
فللتقاطع
from it. So,
العسكري
military
لا
victory cannot be
يقارن
compared in its
ولا
effects to
تاريخي
any
انتصار
economic
عسكري.
victory.
تخيل كده لو
Imagine if the
المسلمين
Muslims had.
كانوا قد قبضوا على العير وأخذوها وتقووا بها ماليا، هل
They
كانوا
seized the
يبلغون هذا
caravan,
التأثير
took it, and
والنفوذ
strengthened
والنبوغ
themselves
والجاه
financially.
والمكانة
Did they
ما
possess the
بلغوه
same
ما
influence,
نالوه مع
power,
العرب؟
prestige, and status they attained after the Battle of Badr? Impossible. Therefore, my friends, this is not something we only say about the past,
هذا أمر لا
sometimes
يحدث
in
في
our
الماضي فقط، أحيانا في واقعنا المعاصر من العبارات الجميلة التي حقيقة تثبت
contemporary
الآمال
reality. One of the beautiful
وتقول
phrases that
الله أعد
truly
لك
proves
الجميل
people right
فانظر ما
is, God
فعلت.
has accustomed you to beauty, so tell me what you
وكفى
are used
بمتاع
to.
الدنيا
When a person
إذا
encounters life's
فاجأته
challenges
الدنيا
like a problem
فجاءته
or a
نصيحة.
calamity, they know that God
هذا في قول
Almighty
تبارك
intended
وتعالى
good for
أيضا
them. The
فيه الحكمة.
closest example of this for us as a nation is the Al-Aqsa
الأمر الجليل
operation.
والشاهد بالنسبة لنا كأمة مشهد طوفان الأقصى.
I mean, it's certain,
يعني
and I don't say
كانت
it's certain based on
لا أقول حقيقة
analysis, but rather
علمية
based on what has been
كانوا
written, that they
يعترفون
never imagined they would
إنه ما
achieve
كانوا
such success.
يتخيلون أن ينجحوا
Those
هذا
who
النجاح
carried out the October
إلا
7th
ليكونوا هم
operation had
الأصحاب
a
الخبر
24-hour time
ويتخطى
frame, but
لها
the
بعض
objectives were
الإنسان
achieved in 6
الأمل
hours,
فقط
and they were
6
stunned
ساعات
by this.
وقعدوا 18 ساعة متفاجئين
Success for
بهذا
18
النجاح.
hours. One of the books I would like you to read is one
أحب أن
published
أقرأه
online called The
ونص
Al-Aqsa
على
Operation,
الإنجاز
Its Mother and
المبين
Its
أقصى
Consequences, by one of
آلاف
the
وآلاف
Mujahideen. The Gazans mentioned
من
that they
المجاهدين الغزيين ذكر هو أنهم كانوا يتوقعون أن تنجح هذه العملية بثلث القدر الذي
expected
نجحت
this
به، كانوا
operation
لا
to succeed
متخيلين
by
أنه
only a third of the
هذا
extent it
سيحصل.
did. They
ما كانوا
hadn't
متخيلين أن
imagined all of this would
هذه
happen. They had
ستحقق
envisioned that a third of the
ومن
objectives would be
سيخبرهم
achieved while the
تفاجؤوا
remaining two-thirds would fail. They were
بهذا الذي حدث.
surprised by what transpired.
فهذه المعركة على رغم ما فيها من لأواء ومن مشقة
Despite
ومن
the
دماء
hardships,
ومن مآسي،
massacres, and tragedies of this
إلا
battle,
أنهم
when you
يعلمون
consider
كيف
how
أنهم
God
إذا
orchestrated it in a
قاموا
way neither the
فريقا لا
combatants
يمكن
themselves had
لتصورهم
planned or
ينتصرون على
intended,
المعركة
you become
بأنفسهم،
absolutely certain that
يكون
God
الأمر
intended
يقينا
good in it.
جازما بأن
He
الله
intended
أراد
good
بها
despite
خيرا،
all the tragedies,
أراد بها الخير
massacres.
على ما فيها، على ما فيها من مآسي ومن مذابح ومن تجويع ومن حصار.
Starvation and
فإنه
siege,
الله
how good it
حكيم.
is, only
قبل
God
أن
knows.
ننقل
I
بعضها
can say a few
لكن
things, but God
الله
knows
أعلم.
best. As we
ذكر
mentioned
قبل ذلك
before, you cannot know His
ولن
wisdom
تعرف
unless you
رحمته
possess His
إلا لو
knowledge,
كان
nor
عندك
His mercy
قدرته.
unless you possess His
ولن تعرف رحمته إلا لو كان عندك قدرته. لا يمكن تتصور حكمة الله في خلقه
power.
إلا
You
لو كنت
cannot comprehend God's
تعرف الله.
wisdom in His creation unless you possess His
ولن تعرف
knowledge, nor can
رحمته
you know
إلا
His
لو كان
mercy
عندك
unless you possess His
قدرته.
power. Glory be to our
والله
Lord,
تعالى
the
أعلم.
Most High, in this.
في هذه في هذه المعركة ربنا تبارك وتعالى أرادها ثم أعطى
Battle.
لها
Here our
قدرا
Lord, blessed and
عظيمة
exalted is He,
وكبيرة.
is here. He desired it
وهذا
then,
الاسم
gave it a great, tremendous, and
يوم نصر
magnificent name.
الله.
What is this name? The
يوم
day of distinction, the day of
هو
distinction, a
اليوم
name that
الذي
when you read it
يشعر
evokes
به الهيبة.
awe. It is
يوم
said that on
الفرقان.
this day God distinguished
وقد
between
قيل
truth and
بأن
falsehood.
الله
On this day
فرق
our
بين
Lord, blessed and exalted is He, said that those who
الباطل
perish
والحق.
might perish upon clear proof, and those who
أليس
live might
الله
live
تبارك
upon clear
وتعالى
proof.
ليهلك من هلك
I.
عن بينه ويحيى من حي عن بينه.
We'll come to this, God
وهذه
willing,
بعض
now,
الآيات
but one of the
التي
greatest
وردت
signs of the Day of
من
Distinction, my
أعظم
brothers and
دلائل
sisters,
سلطان
is what
الله الكوني
transpired
في هذا
between
اليوم.
relatives. Some
ما
Muslims,
جرى
on one
بين
side,
الأقارب،
confronted the polytheists on the other, who were their own kin.
وهو
This
إن
was a truly
بعض المسلمين في هذا الجانب تواجهوا مع المشركين في هذا الجانب وقد كانوا من قراباتهم. وهنا
great test,
هذا
you know,
درس
and
عظيم
recite the words of God
لطلاب العلم.
Almighty. You will not
وأعتقد
find
أنكم
a
تحفظون
people who believe
قول
in
الله
God and the last day having
وآخر
affection for
قولهم
those who
يؤمنون
oppose
بالله
God and His
ورسوله
messenger, even if they were their
ولا
fathers or their
تجد
sons.
من حاد الله ورسوله ولو كانوا آباءهم أو أبناءهم أو إخوانهم أو عشيرتهم.
or their brothers or their kindred. And in Surah at-Tawbah it says, "Say, O Muhammad, if your fathers, your sons, your brothers, your wives, your kindred, wealth which you have obtained, commerce wherein you fear decline, and dwellings with which you are pleased are more beloved to you than God and his messenger and jihad. In his cause then, wait until God executes his command, and God does not guide the people, the transgressors, regarding what appeared in this."
فمن أجل ما ظهر في هذه المعركة ما يرويه بعض أهل السير وإن اختلف بعض
Battle
المفسرين
some biographers narrate, though some people disagree on its authenticity or weakness, but Al-Hafiz mentioned that its chain of transmission is sound. It is said that our master Abu Ubaidah Amir ibn al-Jarrah went to the Battle of Badr and his father confronted him, so he turned away from him. His
فيظل أبوه يتعرض له وفي رواية أنه كان
father continued to confront him, and in another narration he was raising idols for him as if he was provoking him or declaring his allegiance to the idols. Abu Ubaidah kept turning away from him until he could no longer, so he fought him and killed him. Thus Abu Ubaidah, the trustworthy one of this nation, killed his father in this battle.
أمين هذه الأمة قتل في هذه المعركة أباه وذكرنا في المجلس الماضي أن سيدنا عمر
We
رضي
mentioned
الله
in the
عنه
previous
قتل
session that our master, Umar, may God be pleased with him, killed his maternal uncle Alasi ibn Hisham, ibn al-Mughir. We also mentioned that our master Umar's mother was Hantama bint Hashim ibn al-Mughira, and some people said Hantama bint Hashim bint Hisham, so he was either his direct maternal uncle or one of his maternal uncles, meaning
من أخواله يعني من بني مخزوم وهم أخواله
from the Banu Maxim, who were his maternal uncles. It is also mentioned that our master Abu Bakr he was searching for his son Abdurrahman in the battle. It is narrated that Abdurrahman said, "I met you on the day of Badr, but I turned away from you." He replied, "But if I had met you, I would not have turned away from you."
قال ولكني لو لقيتك ما زوررت عنك.
Also, in this battle, our master Musab ibn Umair captured his brother Aziz ibn Umair. He told the Ansari who had captured him, "Tighten his bonds, for he has a mother who will ransom him with a
للأنصاري الذي أسره اشدد وثاقه فإن له أما تفديه بمال كثير.
large sum of money." Aziz said, "Is this your advice regarding your brother?" He replied, "Be quiet, for he is my brother, not yours." We will have another story about our master Musab shortly, God willing. Therefore, my friends, and
لذلك يا جماعة الخير يعني وعلى فكرة أيضا مما ورد عن
by the
سيدنا
way,
عمر
it is
رضي
also
الله
narrated
عنه
that
وأرضاه
our master
أنه
Musab killed his brother Ubaid ibn Umair at Badr, although I have doubts about this narration. Some commentators mentioned it in connection with the verse, "You will not find a people who believe in Allah and the last day having affection for those who oppose Allah and his messenger." This verse was revealed concerning a number of the people of Badr. Therefore, under this verse you will find a number of these stories in which the Muslims of Badr confronted their relatives among the polytheists, and it was concerning them that God's words were revealed. No, one should aspire to reach the rank and status of the people of Badr, for these are souls that were completely devoted to God and his messenger. It's like a dream to us. I don't know how one can truly free their heart from certain instincts, but they were a people who reached this level of
ولكنهم قوم بلغوا بالإيمان هذا المبلغ.
faith. Therefore, the status of the people of Badr, the faith that settled in their hearts, is unparalleled. Faith comes first, faith precedes everything. May God be pleased with the companions of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and
رضي الله عن صحابة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. ولذلك هنا
here, Imam Sheikh Salih al-Shami, author of the great encyclopedia on the Prophet's biography, the encyclopedia called The Path of Guidance and Righteousness, in the biography of the best of mankind, an 11-volume work, says this very beautiful phrase.
هذه العبارة الجميلة جدا. اسمع معي.
Listen to me. Of course, this phrase was said by al-Salih al-Shami not in this particular situation, not in the situation of the people of Badr, but in other similar situations. You will learn about it later. Later we will come to the story of Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, that is, in a
يعني في موقف إن شاء الله نأتي إليه، لكن في موقف عبد الله بن
situation we will
أبي
come to,
رضي الله
God
عنه
willing,
في
but in the
قتل
situation of
يصيب فيه
Abdullah
النبي
ibn
صلى الله عليه
Ubay
وسلم،
ibn Salul, the leader of the
فسيأتي ويدعو
hypocrites,
عبد الله
insulted
بن
the
عبد
Prophet,
الله
peace and
فيقول يا
blessings be
رسول
upon
الله
him. His son
لو
Abdullah ibn
كان
Abd came and
لأحد
said,
من
O Messenger of God, if you were to order anyone to kill anyone, then order me to kill my father.
ولقد
The Arabs
علمت
know that I
الله
am the most devoted
أبر
of people
الناس
to
برا
my
بأبيه وإني أخشى إن قتله أحد غيري أن تبقى في صدري
father, and I
شيئا
fear that if
ينقص
someone other than me
لوالديه
kills him, some resentment will
فربما
remain in
قتلته
my
مسلما
heart.
فأكون
Perhaps I will
قتلت
kill my
مسلما
father, and thus I will have killed a Muslim for a disbeliever.
فقال النبي
The
له
Prophet replied,
تجزيه
No,
خيرا.
rather we will treat him well. Now do you see what
فكده أنت
a
شايف إيه؟ مثال عالي جدا في تقديم رسول الله صلى الله عليه
high
وسلم على
example there is
الكل
of
للناس
prioritizing the Messenger of
في
God, peace
مثل
and
هذه
blessings be
المواقف
upon
يقول
him,
الصليب
above all
الصليب
else.
هذه
In
العبارة
such
الجميلة يقول
situations, Sally Al-Shami says this beautiful
وفي
phrase,
هذا
and in this great knowledge and
يدل
clear proof is one of the signs of prophethood.
البرهان
He means that
والمنظور
these
من
scenes are
أعلام
part of the
النبوة
miracles of our
مثل
Prophet,
هذه
peace and
المشاهد
blessings be upon him,
هي
and
جزء
one
من
of the
معجزات نبينا صلى الله عليه وسلم ومن أدلة نبوته
proofs of his
فإن
prophethood,
العرب
for the
كانوا
Arabs were the
أشد
most
خلق
zealous and
الله
fanatical of
حرية
God's
وعقيدة
creation, and faith and the light of
فبلغ
certainty reached such a
إيمانهم
point in their
ونور
hearts that a man among
يقينهم
them would desire to kill
إلى أن
his father
يرغب
and
الرجل
son to
منهم
draw
في
closer
قتل
to God
أبيه
Almighty and to
ووالده
ingratiate himself
تقربا إلى
with
الله تعالى وتزلفا إلى رسوله مع أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم
his
أبعدهم عن
messenger, even though the
نسبتيه
Prophet, peace and
الأنصار
blessings be upon him, was the most
فاكرين
distant
في
of people
أول
in
مجلس
lineage.
خالص
Among them are the
لما
Ansar,
ذكرنا
these
إنه
people. Remember in the
قيل
first
إن
gathering when we mentioned
نسبه
that
إلى
the
عدنان
Prophet's
لكن
tribe
الأنصار
traces its
سيطروا
lineage back
إلى
to Adnan, but the
قحطان
Ansar trace their
قحطان
lineage
فرع
back to
بعيد جدا
Cotton, a
من
pure
العرب
branch, a very distant branch from the
فالعرب لا
Arabs. So he says
يعرفون
that although the
نسبا منهم إلا أنهم بلغ هذا
Prophet was the
العلم
most
وهذا
distant in
النور في
lineage from them,
قلوبهم
this knowledge and this light reached
فجب
their
كل
hearts. He doesn't
علاقة
forget every
يربط
relationship,
الرجل
meaning a man might
بأبيه
think of
وأمه
killing his
ولده
father and his son to gain
إلى الله
favor
ورسوله
with God and
وأمته
his messenger and to
فكان
draw
أشد
closer to
الناس
him,
حبا
and the
وتعظيما
Arabs were the most zealous and fanatical of
ويقول
people, so he says. Meaning he says that
يعني
this is one of the
من
signs of
عظيم آيات
prophethood and one of
نبوته
the
وحكمة الله
wisdoms of
ورحمته أن
God, blessed
الأنصار
and
كانوا أبر
exalted is
الناس
he,
قلبا
that the Ansar were the supporters of
يقول
the
وما
Prophet,
تأخر
peace and
إسلام
blessings be
قومه
upon
وابن
him.
عمه
He says that the delay in the Islam of his
وسائر
people and his cousins and the faith of
الأباعد
those farther away was
إلا لحكمة
only
عظيمة
for a great
مثل
wisdom, because if
مبادرة
his
أهله
family and
وقربوه إلى
those
الإيمان
closest to
به
him had
الذين
hastened to believe in him, it would have
أرادوا
been
إنقاذ
said that
رجل
they were a
منهم
people who wanted
وتزكيته
to boast about one of their men and were fanatical about him. Well,
طيب
after the battle, the Prophet, peace and blessings be
بعدما
upon him,
أقام
stayed
النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في بدر 3 أيام وهذه كانت عادة عند
in
العرب
battle for 3 days, and this
وقيل
was a custom
المنتصر
among the
إنما
Arabs for the
يقام
victor to
3
stay in the
أيام
place of the battle for three
فأقامهم
days, and the
النبي صلى
Prophet,
الله عليه
peace and
وسلم
blessings be upon him, stayed there. And
فلما
when he
استعد
prepared
للرجوع
to return, the hadith in the two authentic hadith collections,
حديث
Bukhari
الصحيح
and Muslim,
البخاري
state
ومسلم
that the
أنه
bodies of the slain were dragged out and
سحبت
thrown into a well in the
جثث القتلى وألقيت في بئر موجود في منطقة بدر
Badr area called
القرية
Al-Bir. The
اسمه
Prophet,
بئر
peace and blessings be upon
فرفع
him,
النبي
stood
صلى
there,
الله
calling
عليه
out, O
وسلم
so-and-so,
يده
son of
بالنبي
so-and-so, O
وقال
so-and-so, son of
لفلان وفلان
so-and-so.
وفلان
In
وين
other
الصحابي
versions he named
الذي أسرع
them,
منكم
O Utbah ibn
يا
Rabia, O
عتبة بن
Shayba,
ربيعة
O
يا
Al-Walid
شيبة
ibn Utbah, O Abu
يا أيها
Jahl.
الوليد بن عتبة يا أبا جهل بن هشام هل وجدتم ما وعد ربكم حقا
Ibn Hisham, have you found
فإنا
what your Lord
وجدنا ما
promised to be
وعدنا
true? We have
ربنا
found what our
حقا
Lord promised to be true.
فقال
Then
سيدنا عمر
Umar
يا
said,
رسول
O
الله
Messenger of
إنا
God, are you
وجدنا
speaking to
الحق
bodies without
فقال صلى
souls?
الله عليه
The
وسلم
Prophet,
ما
peace and
أنتم
blessings be upon him,
بأسمع
replied, You are no more able to
منهم
hear what I
ولا
say than they are,
يبصرون
except that they
ولا
cannot speak.
يستطيعون ينطق وطبعا
And of course, let us all
طبعا
pray for the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him,
في
the
لحظة
moment
البدر
of
دي يعني لحظة مفاجأة لا ككل المفاجآت ولحظة يقظة لا ككل اليقظة ولحظة اكتشاف لا ككل الاكتشافات هذه لحظة هائلة
descending into the grave is a moment of surprise unlike any other, a moment of awakening unlike any other, a moment of discovery unlike any other. This is a tremendous moment, when a person descends into his grave and hears people departing from him finding only what he has sent forth. This is a tremendous moment. Therefore one is incapable of imagining or
أن يتلبس. يعني الواحد لو وضع نفسه مكان عتبة بن ربيعة
comprehending it. If one were to put himself in the place of Utbah ibn Rabia, I seek refuge in God, meaning I seek refuge in God from that. But when someone tries to act this person who was killed and thrown away and heard this statement from the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, and witnessed the truth,
ذهبت عنه الدنيا.
the world vanished from him. You were heedless of this, but we have removed your veil, so your sight this day is sharp. This is a tremendous moment. Incidentally, some of the early Muslims used to reform themselves in this way. Some of them would
يصلح نفسه بهذا. بعض السلف كان يحفر في بيته قبرا وينزل فيه.
dig a grave in their house and descend into it, to experience this atmosphere, the atmosphere of being cut off from the world and from work and having nothing left but their deeds until they reach the stage of my Lord, they will be returned. This is the stage that everyone wants to reach at this moment. They say to themselves, now I have returned, so act as you wished. This was one of their methods for disciplining themselves. And listen, by God, you will not know the balance of your deeds except in the moment of danger. Whoever among you has experienced this has experienced it, and whoever has not, know that all the lessons, all the lectures and all the sermons, you will not know the true balance of your deeds except in the moment when you feel death approaching. At that moment the map of your deeds will be revealed to you, and there is no person who does not wish for it. This moment is when one is saved from death. Even if death comes to one of them, he says, my Lord, send me back so that I may do righteousness in that which I left behind. So when I stand before this scene and try to imagine what Utbah ibn Rabia was saying to himself, and Utbah ibn Rabia, this man who was, as his son described him, a man of wisdom, forbearance and nobility, and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, described him in the battle of Badr, saying, if there is any good in these people, it is the one with this red camel. If they obey him, they will be guided. Well, this is a man who entered hell. People entered hell. There is no God but God. Do you know what that means? It means to enter hell and never return. There is no power nor strength except with God. By God, it is a tremendous and terrifying scene. A person, I ask God to protect us and you from hell and to grant us repentance before death, but this is a tremendous fate. I mean, what can I say? You know, when a person is sentenced to life imprisonment, that life sentence is the one that can be reduced on appeal, or, sir, he can be released through a pardon, or in a prisoner exchange, or the political situation can change, or there can be a revolution or a coup or anything like that. But the one who enters hell, the one who enters hell, there is no way out of it, there is no escape from it, for by God it is a very, very, very difficult situation. Therefore I advise myself and you once again, with the words of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, let none of you be like those who say, if people are good you will be good, and if they are bad you will be bad, and if they are bad you will be bad. Rather, train yourselves that if people are good you will be good, and if they are bad you will avoid their bad. The important thing is that the battle ended here in its outward form, but what remains is this battle that ended in its outward form. This is the form that news reports can capture, the form that historians can write about. But what remains is the most important aspect of the battle, the aspect that news reports cannot capture and that historians do not know, the matter that took place in the realm of the psyche and in the realm of the unseen, the hand of God in the battle, the hand of God in the battle, the first thing we see of the hand of God in the battle is a vision seen by Attica, the
زوج العباس.
wife of Abbas. Yes, Attica bint Abd al-Muttalib, the sister of Abbas. Attica's vision. What did Attica see? She came to her brother Abbas and said to him, I have seen a vision.
عاتكة جاءت بأخيها العباس وقالت له لقد رأيت رؤيا ولقد خفت على قومك منها الشر.
And I fear evil for your people because of it, but no, I will tell you about it so that you promise me not to say it, for if the people know about it, they will insult us and we will see evil from them. Okay, what is the vision that she saw? She saw that he was riding, he came to
رأت كأن راكبا جاء على مكة وصار ينادي يا لفجر يا لغدر، يعني جمع فاجر
Mecca, and he
وجمع
started calling out, O wicked one, O treacherous one, meaning a gathering of wicked ones and a gathering of traitors. Wait 3 days, wait, yes, 3 days. Then he went to the Kaaba, then he stood on the top of the mountain calling out, then he took hold of a rock from the
ثم أمسك بصخرة من الجبل فرماها.
mountain. When it reached the base of the mountain, it crumbled, meaning it scattered, it split, it shattered, so each house had a stone from it.
فدخل كل بيت منها حجر.
The vision means a sign, a warning of evil. Okay, Al-Abbas bin Abdul Muttalib was a close and intimate friend of Al-Walid bin Utbah bin Rabia, so perhaps he is the one who, meaning he was shocked and surprised by it. He whispered it to Al-Walid bin Utbah.
تفجعه وتفاجئه أسر بها إلى الوليد بن عتبة. الوليد بن عتبة أول ما سمعها أسر بها إلى
Walid bin Utbah, the first thing he heard, whispered it to his father Utbah bin Rabia. His father Utbah bin Rabia heard it. He whispered it to whom? Shayba ibn Rabia. And you know, of course, the secret when it comes out. 3 or 4, you know, when you entrust someone with a secret, he tells you, God willing, it won't leave. Istanbul, if a man's heart is too narrow to hold a secret, then the heart of the one to whom the secret is entrusted is even narrower. So it spread among the Quraysh until it reached Abu Jahl. Of course, it's natural that it would reach Abu Jahl. This is Abu Jahl, the
طبيعي توصل لأبي جهل. ده أبو جهل ده الراجل اللي ماسك الملف. تمام. فجاء إلى العباس
man who is in charge of the file. So he came to Al-Abbas, and he was in a gathering of people. O Abbas, what was Attica's dream? Abbas was surprised. He said, she didn't see anything. He said, no, but she will tell it. By God, O sons of Abd al-Muttalib, O God bless Muhammad, peace be upon him. By God, O sons of Abd al-Muttalib, we have competed, you and we, for honor, until when our ranks were aligned you said, A prophet is from among us, and you are about to say, A.
منا الركب قلتم منا نبي ويوشك أن تقولوا منا نبية. صح ولا لا؟
Prophet is from among us, right or not? I mean, we're done with Muhammad, he migrated to Medina. Now what are we going to do? They're going after him. 2 And by God, if these 3 days pass and nothing happens, we will write a record and hang it in the Kaaba, saying that you are the most deceitful household in Arabia. Men
وعلقناه في الكعبة أنكم أكذب بيت في العرب رجلا وامرأة.
and women alike. Of course, when this reached Attica, she told Abbas, what's wrong? I told you from the beginning not to bring up this topic. On the 3rd day, Damdam ibn Amr al-Ghafari came, saying, the caravan, the caravan.
طيب عند اليوم الثالث جاء ضمضم ابن عمرو الغفاري وهو يقول اللطيمة اللطيمة.
Muhammad has confronted Abu Sufyan, catch up with your caravan, but I don't think you will catch it. Naturally, this is the first thing that
طيب طبيعي الآن هذا أول ما يدخل في هذه النفوس من القلق والتوتر والفجيعة.
enters these souls, anxiety, tension, and grief. Do you remember before that? And we say that a state of war was declared between the Quraysh and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and that this was one of the ways they declared war when our master Sa'd ibn Mu'adh came to Mecca and stayed as a guest of his friend from the pre.
أبو جهل رآه قال
Islamic era Umayyah ibn Khalaf. Then Abu Jahl saw him and said, "You have given refuge to the young women and I see you circumambulating the house in safety. By God, if you weren't under the protection of Abu Ali you wouldn't have returned to your family in peace." He replied, "If you had prevented me from accessing this house I would have prevented you from trading. To Syria, do you remember this story? During this visit Sa'd ibn Mu'adh of course was with Umayyah ibn Khalaf. He was speaking to Abu Jahl and telling him, "Don't raise your voice against Abu al-Hakam, the leader of the people of the valley." Abu Jahl replied, angry and asked, "Did Muhammad say that?" Abu Jahl replied, "Yes." Umayyah asked, "Did he say he would kill me in Mecca?" Abu Jahl replied, "I do and no." From that time on Umayyah ibn Khalaf resolved never to leave Mecca. "We are fine and you should pay attention. We also remember when we spoke and said that truthfulness is the capital of the caller to Islam. Truthfulness is the capital of the caller to Islam. The truthful caller is one who is not known to lie. His words have consequences. That is why Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, when he heard the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, say, "But if they turn away then say, I have warned. You have a thunderbolt like the thunderbolt of his Ibn Thamud," said to him, "What? Stop, that's enough." He knew later we will also discuss Ubay ibn Khalaf. Ubay ibn Khalaf heard the Prophet's words, peace and blessings be upon him. He used to harm the Prophet, saying to him, "I have a horse that I know belongs to you, I will kill it for you." So the Prophet said to him, in Mecca he said, "I will kill you, God willing." Later at Uhud the Prophet threw a spear at him and it grazed him. He returned and his family said to him, "What's wrong? Just a scratch." He replied, "No, by God he is my killer. He told me in Mecca, I will kill you." The words spoken by a truthful person have consequences. Now Umayyah ibn Khalaf is not planning to leave Mecca after hearing these words. When his wife saw him preparing, Abu Jahl provoked him, saying, "You're going to perfume yourself like a woman." He gave him a coal container and said, "Apply coal like a woman."